about 40 minutes.
Oh.
You all right with that?
Yes.
Beautiful. Hey guys, and welcome to Dark Arts channel. This is where we help you guys navigate the dating world. Yes, we want to make sure that you don't fall into the pitfalls of manipulation that is from both men or women to control, to dominate, to persuade, and influence you into doing what they want. If you're tired of being played, then this is a channel for you. But today we have something a little bit more different. You've seen her before, and we've spoken some deep things also before, and we're going to go again deep again once more. Naomi, how you doing today?
What's popping? Do you recite
What's
these?
popping?
Was that smooth? Was
Huh?
yourself head? That intro was it off the top of your head?
Yeah, I tend to try and
Smooth.
get it together. You know what I mean? As an actor, you know what I mean?
Too smooth. I love it. I'm great.
Yeah,
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm alive and I'm well. And I'm ready for this conversation. I know it's going to be a good one because we spoke quite a bit in the DMs. We spoke also today as well. So I know it's going to be a good topic. You get me?
It's always good to speak to you. So let's crack on.
Love that. I love that. So today's topic, if you're just joining us, guys, is there arrogance in being self-aware and also self-acceptance? Is there an arrogance that comes from that? Because last few weeks ago, we spoke about the imprisonment that happens through being self-aware. But this week, we're going to talk a little bit about, is there pride or arrogance that kind of comes along when you become far more self-aware? Do you know what I mean? I don't know if does that make sense?
Absolute sense, and I can't wait to dig into this one because this is something that I'm currently dealing with at the moment, and very intense to accept that I am an arrogant, aware person. An arrogant person. That sounded a bit. It made sense though. There's a lot of arrogance behind my awareness now, and yeah, I need to work on not projecting the arrogance.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I know some people might be thinking, "Well, what the hell?" But I think I always say that intelligence itself is a powerful thing. But then when you become self-aware with it as well, I think it just becomes there's an aspect of where you have to kind of find a balance because it does make you feel a little bit arrogant at points in time. It's like, oh, you know what, I already knew that. You know when someone tells you something like, "Oh, this is how you are," well, I already knew that.
I already knew
like, you know what I mean? Like, and then you almost can't take the feedback because it's like, I already knew that.
that.
So. Oh, you told me this, but I already knew that. So why, you know what I mean? Like you're behind, get with the program kind of thing. You know what
I mean? I feel that two things. I've noticed that people don't like when you know who you are. Way, number one. And number two, I also feel that when it comes to the arrogance, it's more, I don't know how to articulate it that well, but I think everybody takes pride in their strengths, right? So if you know that you have, for example, I don't know, great hair, you will pride yourself with how you carry your hair. I pride myself with the fact that I'm aware of who I am. So by way of how I express myself, it seems as though I'm being arrogant, but it's not really my intention. I just know that that's my flex. Like, I know I'm aware. So that's where I flex. But I guess that complements the initial statement that I made about the fact that people don't really like when you know who you are, because it kind of, for example, the other day someone said that they feel like I'm a narcissist, and I said, I agree with you. I feel like everybody has narcissistic traits, and they kind of got annoyed that I agreed with them because I think they wanted me to argue against them. But then for me, it was like, okay, if I say I'm not a narcissist, you would get annoyed because you feel like I'm not aware of who I am. So you can't really win when it comes to awareness and arrogance. But I don't know what you think about that.
Do you know what? I love that point that you made at the very end about the narcissism thing because I think I was speaking to another guy some weeks back, and I was kind of like having a conversation, and he was saying he was having this crisis in the sense of like he considers every single thought before he does it. So it sounds to him, he's like, this sounds so calculating. I said to him, bro, welcome to the jungle. He said, what do you mean? I said, bro, I know exactly what you're going through. It's not arrogance or pride per se. It's just that you've been gifted with the ability to have self-awareness that you can consider every thought before you do it. Now, the problem with that is when we say that to somebody else, then it becomes like we're narcissists because it's like, well, so if you already knew that, why would you do that? Because I'm a human being, and just because I know certain things doesn't mean I won't do it.
I wanted to, and we spoke about this the last time we obviously filmed. That you either living life being intentional or things are happening to you by accident. You're better off doing things with intention, and then you're able to live with yourself rather than having to deal with the fact that you didn't even intend to do certain things. And again, the dark side of it all, isn't it? Like, not sorry, basically.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty that comes with it, because it's like someone will say, "Well, if you think that, surely you'd be remorseful." It's like, are you remorseful when you don't think about it? You don't think about it. So you want me to be remorseful in a moment just because I thought about it? And it's very difficult because at times, like you said, then you get locked in. But at the same time, then it becomes difficult too, because then you become, like you said, confident, or someone might appear to be arrogant or prideful about the fact that you know yourself very, very well.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, and that's why I want to go back to that narcissist point. Like you said, everybody's on a spectrum anyway when it comes to narcissism. We all on a spectrum. If you own an Instagram, I can guarantee you got a bit of narcissism in you.
Literally, you walk around like this on your camera talking to your Snapchat, you are so in love with yourself, you didn't even know that. Like, you don't. And I think, just to kind of go back again to the fact that I'm saying that people don't like when you are aware of self, I think sometimes people project the fact that they are unable to accept certain parts of themselves, but others do. So, like you said, being a narcissist on a spectrum, people associate narcissism with such a negative thing that they don't like the idea of even being associated with that label. But when they meet somebody who's embracive of the fact that they could be a narcissist, for them it's kind of like, you're arrogant. And it's like, no, I know my truth, I understand who I am, and you don't know what I do in the background to kind of like adhere or to fix certain parts of my characteristic, but at least fair enough to be able to accept that this is how I am. Whereas most people have no clue that they might be arrogant or a narcissist, or don't know how to take accountability. They have just no clue whatsoever. So where do you even go from there if you don't know that you are what you are?
I'm with you on that as well. So, in a sense, when you become confident in yourself and accept parts of yourself, that's where there's usually a tension for people. So, like loving yourself as you are, can be seen as narcissism. So, accepting your habits and your skills and how you look can be considered as narcissism. I think when we met at the event, I remember you said to me, "How do you think you came off?" And I was like, "I think I came off like this." It is what it is, you know what I mean? Like that's how I think I came off.
Yeah.
You know,
It was, I think it was refreshing. Like, this guy literally knows how he is. Like, when he was like kind of like sharing ideas about how people perceived who whatsoever, you already knew what was coming in terms of how people received you, because you know who you are and you know how you come across. I think
and that can come off as arrogant.
people want you to love yourself, but not more than how they love themselves.
What does that mean?
So if someone sees that you love themselves and they know that they have elements of themselves that they are insecure about, it triggers them to see that you are happy with how you are and who you are. But obviously, that's only because they see confidence. They don't know that confident people, or those who are aware, or those who accept themselves, also have insecurities, also question themselves. They just see their confidence and assume that we think we're perfect, but it's not.
And that's key.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. So yeah, and I like that part as well, because it's not that we think we're perfect, or it's not that I think I'm perfect. Let me say,
Mm-hmm.
and put myself in a perspective. It's not that I think I'm perfect. It's actually the opposite. I know I'm not perfect,
Right.
just because I'm able to assess every thought. And I think the interesting thing as well, I said to this young gentleman about, do you know what the beautiful thing about being so hyper aware of self is, that if from my perspective as a Christian, it actually displays the gospel. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're able to assess every particular thought you have, you realize just how depraved we are as human beings. Some of you are being saved. Some of you don't even, some of you are being saved right now, because if you had to actually deep some of the behaviors that you guys have and why you did it, it would destroy a lot of you guys. Like some of you guys
Right.
realize you're really bad. You know what I
Right.
mean? You need
Right.
saving.
Trying to do you a favor, like, can you please, like, don't let me crucify me for it. Bloody hell, trying to help you love yourself and see yourself ultimately. Like, I think, I don't know. I'm at a place now where I'm trying to focus less on understanding others and more understanding myself, and I don't internalize how I experience people. I feel like how people show up, I think I said this to you earlier, obviously says more about how they see themselves and how they feel. And you just have to just continue. It's self-acceptance. Just know your intentions. If you know who you are, how you think, and why you do what you do, whatever you hear on the outside, it kind of just kind of like bounces off you. But I don't know. Would you say that you are comfortable being misunderstood because you accepted yourself? as you are?
Yeah, I think it becomes part of the whole persona, I guess, the larger than life attitude that maybe someone might feel like I have. But yeah, I think it becomes part and parcel of it. I think the more that you do know yourself, I think the more mysterious you do become, because you have
Okay.
more control of yourself.
Right.
You know
That's
what I
true.
mean? Meaning that
True.
you can access, you can now genuinely and honestly and truthfully present what you need to present to
Right.
people. You know what I mean? Because you have a handle on who you actually are and what's good, what's bad. Like even your strengths and your weaknesses. You know, okay, maybe I've got weaknesses in here. I
Mm-hmm.
obviously I'm gonna make sure I stay away from this and maybe focus more on this. So I think, you know, that mystery normally the mystery is the fact that you know self.
Right.
That's the mystery. If you're able to, so like sometimes when I'm like, for instance, and you'll probably be aware of this well, like a lot of times when I'm dealing with YouTube stuff, when people ask me when I study psychology, I said I got a U. They're like, how do you know? Do you know why? Because I tap into my own mind and it's warped. So I can tell you sometimes what men are thinking, it is warped. That's the honest reason why. You know what I mean? When I tap in there, it's dark. There are some dark sinews and avenues that people go down.
Yeah.
That's why I'm able to understand a bit more in terms of where people are coming from, as well. But then that creates a mystery because it's like, then how did you understand that? I can't tell you how. I can only show you. I can't tell you because, like, we're on the same wavelength, right? You can voice note me, and I'll be like, no, I mean, like, I don't know how to explain it, but that's just you're
Yeah.
on the thing, you know.
Yeah. And it's like I hear you. You've said no words, but we're basically here. I hear you.
Yeah. How about yourself? That mystery
And
aspect.
you said that perfectly. I feel like the more I understand myself, the less I care about being understood because I sleep like a baby at night, knowing who I am, why I am, and how I am. One thing that I will say is that in terms of this, that idea works for me in my day to day, but it is a bit more complex and difficult when it comes to family because ultimately
Ooh.
for you're the closest to you want them to understand you, and even though they are the minority in your life, because the majority of people you don't care enough to be understood by, the one place where you do want to be understood, you kind of like battle with yourself because you question
Mm.
how you are is okay because you're not being understood at home. Yeah.
I get that. I get that. Yeah, I'm hearing that. I think for my one, I guess it's not as important, maybe because of the way my family unit is. It's not as important in that aspect. I think mine is more in terms of relationship, like romantic relationships, that I find myself having to. I think I did it today, and I was like, I had to explain something to somebody, and I could hear myself. I'm like, I'm explaining bare. And I'm
Oh,
like, it's because I'm trying to make understood in it. So I'm explaining all like everything in my mind, like and I was like, yeah, this is long. This voice note is now long, and I'm explaining a whole lot of stuff probably didn't want to know, or doesn't really it's not important to them. But it's because I'm like you said, and to people that you care about, you are trying to be
yeah,
understood.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I definitely rocks with that 100%. That's
I
definitely.
wonder if with the people that we're the closest to, we actually want to be understood or accepted. Because I feel like we just said that
Ooh.
the more you know yourself, the less you care about being understood by obviously the outside world.
Mm.
If you have accepted how you are, is it that we're really just asking to feel validated in those spaces with our family and in our relationships? Like when it comes to the world, I can handle myself and I don't care what they think, but I do kind of care what you think. I just want you to tell me that I'm okay as I am, that you love me as I am. Yeah.
I rock with that. I do actually rock with that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I rock with that because it's everybody's looking for a place they can be. Like, I hear women say this all the time, like, you know, there's rarely a place we can be. You know, like I've heard black women say it a lot, and I don't really understand it till kind of what you just said now. I'm really deep in it even more. That
Right.
everybody needs a place where they can just be, which is why we have best friends or certain friendship groups, or you know, certain people, family in our family that we get on with probably a bit more, because in those spaces you can just be,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, not understood but
Right.
accepted.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Mm,
And
I've
how
got more
how
words.
feel like you are accepted? Because I personally I'm still working on the feeling accepted by the minority in terms of family and like family and relationships. But
Mm.
I'm so embracive of my own space and time that I don't even want anyone around. I'm just okay with how I see myself. I'm trying to like keep people up. Those who don't seek to let me be, I'm like kind of like keeping them at bay. I'm doing a lot of like hand movements today. It's like a traffic warden or something. Sorry.
Never a problem. Never a problem. We don't mind a little bit of hand movements and just gesticulation. Never a problem. I think, and maybe this is where the nuance comes in, right? Men and women. Maybe this is where the nuance comes in. Like, for instance, arrogance, intelligence is not seen as a negative for men.
Okay.
So maybe that aspect of where me wanting to be accepted isn't so tough in an instance, like, because I know last week you were saying about having to dumb it down, right? So if you're that woman, like, I know my sister, I love her, the intelligence is just a lot, and I tell her sometimes you got to tone it down because it just comes off as arrogance.
No
Yeah, I
way.
tell her sometimes because she be
No.
using these big words. Even me, I'm like, gee,
That,
just we're not with you right now. Just come down a little bit. We know what you're saying is like, she's super like intelligent, like, you know. So for her, she's just saying the words, but I'm like, to us, it sounds like you're being condescending in a moment. Like if it's a heated argument or something like that, it sounds like you're being condescending, right? So I think for men and women, it becomes different, right? I'm even noticing myself, that's probably not the best thing to be saying to her, but now I'm like deep in it. Like men and women come off differently when it comes to this aspect, because me being accepted for being intelligent or self-aware doesn't come off the exact same way as maybe perhaps a woman would. And let's say specifically Black women, if it would come off the exact same way. I don't know if that's also a nuance that maybe plays into things.
of course, because I always speak about the lack of freedom Black women have to show one expression versus the other. It's almost as if we're expected to show you're strong, but in showing you're strong, you can't show that you're too strong. It's like you want to be deemed as intelligent, but it's like don't be too intelligent. So it's kind of like the bar that there's no real frame for how you're supposed to be. But ultimately, I always push women to be the best version of themselves, whatever makes you happy. But it can feel a bit confusing because it's like, what is it like? Why should I have to dumb myself down? What is it? Because what is it about intelligent women that makes some men feel small?
That's a question. That's a question. What makes it? I think for again, I think it's about, I guess, power dynamics. I guess
Okay.
in the sense of the relationship between two people. Like I think for men, we're very much entitled, very much prideful, and very much egotistical. And then we're on top of that, there is a very healthy, thick lard of misogyny that's in there that everyone's having to undo as they go through life, right? So it's like you have to be the best at everything. So if your girl is more intelligent than you, your fear is she's going to make you look silly. And that to the world outside, she's better than you in a sense, right?
That's it.
Because intelligence is considered to be quite weighty. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like intelligence, money, looks people don't mind because men aren't judged on their looks. You
Right.
know what I
Right.
mean? And so it's not a problem. If a girl's more better than you, like, yeah, you did well, bro.
I bagged a good. Yeah. Okay.
You collected top. But if
Yeah.
now she's smarter than you, it's like, bro, she's smarter than you, bro. Like, she's gonna outplay you. Because remember, a lot of us are also thinking about men. Men play chess a lot of times, you know, in their
Right. Right.
heads, like how they're playing. So it's like, bro, she's gonna play you. Bro. You sure you want to be like? She's gonna play you. She's gonna outdo you, bro. I don't know if that's the right one for you, you know. And then ego kicks in, pride kicks in, and the misogyny that we have also kicks in very, very strong in that moment. So I think a lot of times it's just we don't want to appear weak. And
Right.
intelligence is something that we're measured on. So if you can beat us on our own metric, we're considered weak. If you beat us on beauty, it's not our metric. Men are not
Right. Right.
measured by beauty. So yeah, it's almost like when girls say, "I don't want a pretty boy." What do you mean? He shouldn't be more pretty than me. Why? Because women are measured on their beauty. It's their
Fair enough.
metric that
Fair
the
enough.
world
Yeah.
values them. Not necessarily is real, but what the world values them. What's your
No,
thoughts?
that makes. I just think I don't know when if we're speaking specifically about relationships. I feel like a woman, if a in terms of let's say for example strength, if a man is strong, I would find that something to brag about. My man is strong, so he can
Mm,
protect. But men don't see my woman is strong. She can teach me. They think she's gonna take advantage of me, and I think it kind of like speaks to the psychology of the whole power dynamic because men are forever thinking about how powerful they want to be, and I don't think women think about that. Like, I don't care if you're more intelligent than me or stronger than me. Like, it's not really. I'm not in competition with you, basically.
mm.
But
And that's where the beef is, right?
obviously,
Because the unfortunately, you grow up both parties grow up with the metrics, you
Mm.
know, of what you're valued at, what society says you are valuable by. And that's the unfortunate part that comes into play between men and women, like you're saying. So that's why I said about maybe the self-awareness piece might come off slightly different. If we both enter into a room and I let's say if I'm even a bit more arrogant than you are, right?
Mhm.
In the way, or braggadocious in the way I am, it will be considered, okay, well, he's intelligent. He might be a little bit of arrogance, but you know what? Maybe I like him because he's got a bit of arrogance. I can say this for sure. You walk into that room and you have a little bit of braggadociousness, you got two types of men. Men that are going to be like, I don't want it, or two, the other man who wants to try and settle you
Just
down.
break down
Yeah.
scary scenes. You can
Yeah.
smell them. I can smell them. Oh no, I can always smell them. No, no, stay away. Remember that? Well, we'll talk about it off camera anyway. But when we was
Mm.
at the table, do you remember? And I said, I don't get irritated by men like you anymore. Like I can smell them now. Like no, stay away. But funny thing that you raised ultimately. I wonder. Do you know what? Now that this is a safe space. I
Mm.
I I think that I'm starting to get ahead of my power.
Mm. What does that mean?
So I understand what my appeal and attraction is, and I think sometimes I play on it by accident.
Mm. Mm. When you say accident, what does that actually mean?
It means that no, it is an accident only because if we're speaking in terms that scientifically about adopting habits, is that you start to train your brain that some things become second nature. So when I say accident, it's not that if like I haven't thought about it, but it's now a default expression of mine. So oops.
Mm.
But I kind of
Yes.
know I'm doing it because I'm aware enough to understand how I express myself, but I didn't kind of mean it, or like I don't mean to play on my own character all the time
Mm.
as I'm currently doing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So in in a sense, I think from what you're kind of saying there, in the sense of like you've now become one with the superpower, you know, and now you're able to utilize it in a particular way.
No,
You know,
like
no,
you. Don't you dare.
no, no.
Don't you dare.
You said not like you. Do you know what? You're right. You know what? Because I was about to take it dark. I was just going to say I was about to take it absolutely dark.
What was you gonna?
Huh?
What was you gonna say?
No, because I think this it's that superpower of, like I said, being self-aware intelligence is a beautiful thing, right?
Mhm.
Mixed it with psychology is a beautiful thing. And I think I'm always trying to find the line between, is this you naturally doing this, or is this you premeditated, almost manipulative? Like I have to always ask myself that question. Because if I know the end goal, how do I
Mhm.
know that's not manipulative, or that's just what I'm doing because I want to do it? I think, and again, you know what? Maybe another time, another day. That's why it always comes back to the gospel aspect, because I always think to myself, like when we talk about free will versus whether it's free will, whether it's determination or whatever people choose, whatever. Then I ask myself that key question. So in that moment, am I doing this because I want to do this,
Mhm.
or am I doing this because I know already what the end goal will actually be? And I don't
Mhm.
think people fully understand
Yeah.
that turmoil that you have in that moment, because generally you actually fully always can't tell 100% whether it's I'm premeditated in terms of I know what the end goal is, or
Yeah.
whether this is generally just me reacting in a situation as because it's part of me now. It's not something I do, or I add. It's part of me. It's my everyday thought. You know what I
Oh, yeah.
mean?
But I think for me, what's helped me being able to discern out of the two is that it feels like the action that you are about to like express starts to feel like when you're told not to touch something but you kind of want to, it feels like that. That's when I know that I'm about
Okay.
to manipulate. So if I'm about to do something and I'm wondering whether this is how I am or whether I'm premeditating something, I think about, if I start to feel an adrenaline, I know that it's not good. I'm trying to coax my
Okay, that's a fair point.
I'm trying to coax my ego. When if I feel okay, this is okay, I'm happy. It's nothing like thrilling. I know that it's nothing. It's not. I'm not being impulsive. I'm actually I've reasoned. I feel I'm here, and this is me being genuine.
That's a good point. That's a really, really good point. I like that. Hmm. Okay. So The cortisol running through the body at that point in time.
But
Very
it's so
determinant.
hard because power is such a crazy thing, because when you realize that you have it, it's kind of like, oh my god, like, so if I did this can happen. Oh my gosh, like, okay, but let me just stay on the right track, and you know what I mean. But yeah, again, that goes back to the whole accepting who you are. You either accept that, you know what, this is how I am, I'm a manipulator, I'm going to be a manipulator, and I can sleep at night being a manipulator, or you know, I have this power, but I don't want to use it in that way because ultimately it doesn't make me feel good about myself. So
Yeah.
you move in the direction that suits you best.
100%. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with that. It's given me some pause for thought. You know, and again, because I think it's because also I know where I am at the moment. It's definitely not in the in the good behavior books at the moment. So you know, the behavior is definitely not one that is.
I know, think nothing, I hear nothing, guys. I don't know anything.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So yeah, that's probably why there's that coming up as well as much. But yeah, no, I definitely hear that. So you know, okay, so let me ask a question: is there some arrogance though? Okay, so we've said obviously that we're not trying to be arrogant. That's not if anyone's just joined us now, I know we're 25 minutes and listen, we're not saying we want to be arrogant. We're saying that it can come off as being arrogant
Mm-hmm.
when you are, you know, self-accepting and self-aware of oneself, right? So in a sense of obviously, you know, this topic, is there arrogant like okay, is there points where you would agree that you are being arrogant with your self-awareness and self-acceptance? Is there a point where you are being braggadocious, you know, you're being exaggerated sense of one's own importance and ability? That's what the definition is anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Is there times where there's that's happening?
All the time.
Mm,
I feel like as far as I'm concerned, I'm the main character of my life. Everyone else is an
mm,
extra, and I'm not sorry about that. And ultimately, I've realized that that does rub people the wrong way, but I don't have to, like, that's not my issue. Like, that's how I see my life, number one. And number two, in terms of the arrogance, like, I sometimes feel like I know more than others.
mm,
I know how much, like I said briefly earlier, I know that I invest a lot of time and energy into understanding myself, into reading. I'm passionate about a lot of things, and I really invest in those things. So when I speak about anything relating to the things that I invest in regarding personal development and emotional intelligence, I'm speaking from a place of confidence, because not that I see my thoughts and opinions as facts, but I'm confident in my opinion about whatever it is I'm voicing. And it can sometimes feel a bit like arrogance, because if I'm speaking to someone and they say, for example, I don't know, we're having a debate basically, and I'm stuck in my truth and I stand in my opinion, they might start getting irritated because they can't understand why I would just won't budge. Like, this is just me, okay, but that's my opinion. And it just sometimes, again, it's like, I think what I think, and that's just that. Whether you agree with me, you don't. That's your business, and it's slightly arrogant of me to be like that, because it's like you're not really trying to receive all the way what someone else is saying, because you're so set on whatever it is that you think.
okay. Yeah,
Well,
definitely hearing that. I think they're definitely doses of arrogance. I think you're actually right again. You know, Bible says actually knowledge puffers up. So it's like when you have more knowledge, it does naturally make you puff up, which is probably why guys get a little bit frustrated with women that are very smart. Because knowledge naturally does that to you. When
right.
you become knowledgeable, you become illuminated, you become and you can become more of an expert on something. There's a confidence that comes with it as well. But there's
Right.
also an aspect where you can also become arrogant with it as well, because you now know more than other people. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? You now know more than the rest around you. And I
Right.
think with self-awareness, I think that does happen sometimes. Like it's like, and I think I said this before, when sometimes people tell me about myself, I'm like, but I already know.
Right.
Like you're wasting your breath now, giving me a 20-minute sermon. I already know. I
Right.
like, and I almost want to stop you in your thing and let's say to you, I already know what you're gonna say, but I now know it's gonna come off as arrogant because
Right.
I already know what you're telling me. I already know. Like,
Right.
you're telling me about this behavior. I already know. What do you want to do about it? Like I've told you now, but you give me a 20-minute sermon, and that's where I think my arrogance usually resides in. Because sometimes I'm like, I already know.
Right.
So like,
Right.
you won't tell me about me, but I'm like, yo, you don't even know. There's even darker thoughts underneath. You even give the surface. You didn't even give underneath.
You haven't even scraped anything, like
You haven't scraped.
bro. But then remember on the last show we spoke about, well, I don't know if I actually said it, but I feel like there's two smart people in a room. The smartest
Mm,
person who has a lot to say and says the least, and the person who knows the most but knows how to play dumb. So with me, the only time I find myself having to address the said arrogance in terms of my expression is with family, because I feel like I should be free to actually say I know that, or this is me. Whereas with the majority, I don't have to prove to people that I know what I know. Like if you're speaking to me and telling me something, and I can see that you might misread something, I can just pretend that, oh, okay, I'm listening and I agree, and I know that I know what I know, so I don't have to prove to you so you can validate me because I know. But
mm,
that's how arrogant I am, that I don't even feel like I have to argue with you because I'm so confident that I know what I know. That's still quite arrogant, if that makes sense.
mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I love the quote that you brought up because I think that quote kind of speaks quite loudly in a sense of that's why I said it's arrogant sometimes when it's like I want to I want to interrupt, and I can hear my thoughts going like, yo,
Yeah.
like we don't need to hear this because like I already
Yeah.
know, but that in itself is the arrogance that is there, which is like like you said, you even if the person says, let's say they only spent 30 seconds telling you something you don't know, you still learn something. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, and I think sometimes what can happen is you can stop your blessing in learning something, like you said, because you want to
Yeah.
interrupt and say, I already know. You're right, you do already know, but you know what? Listen again, because you might actually
Okay.
get something out
Right.
of it by
Right.
listening. You know what I mean?
And sometimes it's not about the fact that you know, it's your ability to know and not make people feel less than because they don't.
Boom. Mm,
That was so good.
that was good.
That was
No,
so
that
good.
was good.
But
Mm, I,
but that then again, it's hard, man, because you the more you learn. I love what you said about knowledge puffers, because the more you know, the more you try to show up in particular ways. But when
yeah.
you with people that perhaps don't know, it gets lost in translation. So it like we said in the last episode, awareness can sometimes feel like imprisonment, because you know so
Mm,
that it's hard to kind of like navigate through life because others, you might feel like others don't know or don't experience things the same way you do. So yeah, I know.
yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think sometimes as well, because of the way I've grown up as well, I also consider that part being in like if I don't speak up right now, I feel like I'm being muted. Because when I was a kid, I wasn't able to express myself. Now when I'm expressing myself, I don't want to look like now I'm gonna be considered arrogant. So what the frick do I do? Because I want to express myself now. You know what I
That
mean? So now you're trapped even more, because like you're thinking it's this I want to be able to express myself in this moment, but am I expressing? So it just becomes very techie real quick. So someone
that
might consider it to be arrogant, but really all it is no, I just need to speak in this moment because I'm being triggered. You're basically saying I have to be mute right now, and I don't want to be mute. I want to defend myself.
that
You know?
you just spoke to my whole shadow self. Like
No.
you 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 hit you went there. Like that is the story of my life. That is exactly the crossroad that I'm at right now. And
Mm,
again, I've struggled along the way because I went from one polarized side of expression to the other, and I'm trying to find my middle now. And I guess I'm trying to adopt the arrogance that allows me to not feel like I'm starting to acknowledge how fragile my ego is, and that's
ooh,
and of me being accepting myself. Like you care so much about being heard that you want to speak. Why just shut up? And it doesn't matter if someone hears you. Like, why do you care to be heard when you already know how you feel? Like, is that how fragile you are that it's important for you to be heard? But yeah, ouch.
that is a bar, and it's like what you just said there about wanting to be heard so much is such a killer thing there because I remember like when I first got saved and everything like that, and I used to read the word and I'll just be soaking it all in, right? And you go to events and someone's like, "Can someone answer this question?" And you're like, "I can answer this question." And then you take the bite, but then you start to, then you like I said, then you get stuck in a moment like, okay, so do I not answer the question this time now because I might seem arrogant, I might seem like I know it all, or do I just keep quiet, like and then like you said, you're trying to find your balance
Right.
of what's a healthy middle ground, especially if you've got that trauma when you're a kid, because then you get then your self-awareness kicks in and says, well, why do you need to worry about whether they think you're arrogant or not? Oh, why do you need to talk right now then?
Right.
What's the so you're bombarded with something always in that moment. You know what I mean? It's a bit tight sometimes.
If you're trying to, and I think it goes back to what you said earlier, about not knowing whether you're doing something because you're being calculated or doing something because you're trying to genuinely like be yourself.
Mm.
But I think there are little habits that I try to incorporate in my day-to-day things, and of like, if I still want to be heard after the third person has spoken, and I really want to be heard. That's the thing I do when I'm interacting with people. If after 5 minutes of speaking to this person, I still feel like this point needs to come out, then I'll bring it out. I'm trying to discern between the impulsive emotions and whether or not things matter. So I give myself time to process feelings and not indulge in them before I speak up to be able to discern between my heart and my ego. Because growing up and it's like, you're embarrassing me.
No, that's interesting actually. That's quite interesting. Because in my head, I'm thinking to myself, I guess no, maybe just because we're now talking about self-awareness. In my head, I'm going, but why does she have to wait till the third person? Why can't she be the first? What's wrong with her being the first?
Because like I said, I experienced myself. I used to experience myself through other people, right?
Yeah.
So I need time to process what I want to say,
Okay.
and I need to. You know how we spoke about that? Sometimes you walk into a room, and for the first 30 seconds, you size up the room.
Yeah.
So for the first 3 minutes of this conversation, I'm trying to size myself up to understand where it is that I am actually at before I present my argument. And I used to be so quote unquote impulsive and not aware that I would just speak without actually reasoning with myself about what it is I'm thinking. So I'm giving myself grace to wait and speak. You don't have to, it doesn't matter whether you're the first person or last person to speak. It's about how comfortable you are and what you're about to say. Like, I just want to make sure that when I do speak, I'm confident in what I'm saying. And like for me, it's about taking the time before I speak.
I agree that 100%. I agree
Mm.
that. I like that. So waiting to
And
formulate your thoughts and your opinions.
like feeling like I'm failing myself. I don't like feeling like I'm failing at all. So I'm just, again, giving myself space to take my time. So when I do something, I can stand in it confidently knowing that I did it with intention.
Do you ever get the feeling? Okay, this is what I'm probably I think I've been battling with at the moment. Is you ever get that feeling where let's say, like you said, you're gonna wait till the third person, you're gonna talk after the third person, right? But then the conversation gets lock off. So so now you stored up waiting, you're ready to down set, you've got bars upon bars, you've
Mm-mm.
processed it all, and then the conversation gets lock off, or let's say conversation completely shifts.
Yeah.
In that moment, I feel so like there's like I wouldn't say it's like a heavy mad thing. It's just a
I,
little thing I've noticed. It's like, oh,
oh,
I had time. I really wanted to. Darn it! I wanted to say something. I almost feel bad, feeling
I was
bad
about,
about the situation.
I was about to shine. It's kind of like there's an event called Special Guest. Such a
Mm,
sick. We should go one day, by the way. So sick, right? And then it's kind of like there's a crowd of people, and the way in which the show works is that you clap, and then when somebody in the crowd gets the courage to stand up and go on stage, you stop clapping. And then the first time I went to the show, there was a moment where I felt like I had built up the courage to stand, and someone got there before. Oh, I got the feeling. Like, woo! You know that moment when you're about to pick up the courage to do something, and you realize that you kind of falls flat. And then when it comes to the question that you asked specifically, I realized that we don't actually speak to people; we speak to ourselves through people. So
mm,
I've now become very okay with the internal dialogue that I have. So I can be in a room full of people and a conversation's being held, and I'm thinking, I'm catching things, I'm responding to things
yeah.
in my. I don't actually have to say it out loud because I'm happy with the conversation I'm having with myself in my head.
Wow.
Um,
That's
yeah,
good.
I journal a lot. So for
Okay.
me, being able, I've realized that some things in life, energy is never lost, it's always transferred. So you need to
Mm,
find somewhere to transfer certain things. If you were excited to release a piece of information and the conversation shifts, like find a way to release it elsewhere. For me, I can journal, I can go and skate for an hour and just continue to ponder on that thought and get excited about my own knowledge. I don't feel the need to have to direct that or have a conversation through somebody with myself anymore.
I think that's what YouTube is for me, though.
Oh
I think
really?
that's what YouTube is. I think that YouTube is because the way I operate with YouTube, like for instance, if I'm like if I do several videos, I'll do it on my own. I'm fine. I'll talk all the way through. But people have noticed it. When I get into group discussions, I just go quiet. I don't need to. I've done all the talking I need to do already.
I've noticed that because the last time we filmed, obviously, the show,
yeah,
you just put your 2 cents in, but it was never really like the floor is mine kind of vibe. Because I hear that.
Because YouTube's now that like you're saying. So that's how I exert it. It's like, oh, once I've done it, I'm like, oh, there's no need because I have space to be heard. I don't need to always do it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, yeah, let other people do it. You know what I mean?
I think I can understand that because I sometimes thought that way about my podcast, but I don't think I can fight all the way with what you said, only because, interestingly enough, people think I'm very vulnerable on my podcast, but I don't think I even scratch the surface of like what it is that I think and feel. The true
Isn't that
depth.
the way of us though?
Pardon?
Isn't that the way that we are all the time? I don't think you will ever be able to feel that way. Like you fully exasperate everything.
I'm just saying that for most people, when they listen to my podcast, they think that I'm slightly more vulnerable than the average person. And to me, I think it's interesting because I think if that's not me, I'm not as vulnerable as I need to be for me to heal from some of the things that I've been through.
I agree.
So you listen to my podcast and being able to identify with this is like, I haven't even scratched the surface of my true vulnerability. I forgot what
do you think you ever my thing, which I was saying is, do you think you'll ever be that space though? Because I think what you're describing is something that I don't know if you can ever give, because you're talking about an unlimited depth of understanding that you have about yourself.
Yeah.
How do you put that all into 40 minutes? We're gonna go away from this conversation and be like,